Raider Nation, you know that end of the party feeling, but you still have this nagging doubt in the back of your mind? The Raiders are heading into their last game against the Chiefs with the season slipping right through their fingers and the whole world watching where we land in the draft. A key piece on offense is becoming a real talking point. People upstairs are wobbling, and there are big names hovering around the sideline for what comes next. And that last story, it hits straight at replacing Pete Carroll. But before we dive all the way into today's heavy breakdown, subscribe to the channel. It is free, and it seriously helps keep this space rolling. And drop a comment with your expectations for the next game. So let's get to Sunday and the ugly picture this season left behind. Week 18 against the Chiefs, and the irony is brutal. We're in position here because we lost way too much. It hurts to say, but that is the reality. Eric Edholm from NFL.com ranked the Raiders as the worst team in the league as the season closes. And it is not some vendetta. That is 10 straight losses and 14 losses in 15 games. It is a gut punch every single Sunday. The biggest red flag is the quarterback situation. Geno Smith took a beating, threw another interception against the Giants, and left the game. Kenny Pickett came in. When that happens, your mind goes to the future fast. The line I keep hearing is, did we just see the last of Geno in silver and black? With the way everything unraveled, it really feels like goodbye is coming. And I hate even saying that, honestly. Now you've got fear and hope colliding at the same time. Because this stretch has the Raiders sitting in front for the #1 pick in the 2026 NFL Draft. But there is still one last hurdle. If you beat the Chiefs, you can shake up that order. And I know beating the Chiefs right now feels like a mission impossible. They have owned the division for a full decade. Pete Carroll even said it in his own way. He said he wants the team to have fun playing football. He also said he wants high energy in practice and to treat Kansas City like the challenge it is. He brought up Andy Reid, and he said this week is about playing ball, not staring at anything else. But fans do not shut their brains off like that, right? We look at the standings and we think about April. And we also think about what comes after the final whistle. Because Edholm dropped two bombs at once. One is Pete Carroll's future. The other is the Max Crosby situation. When an analyst says near total teardown, they are basically seeing scorched earth. And I feel it in the fan chatter. Some people are exhausted, some are furious, some are already living on mock drafts like it is therapy. Here's what gets me. Even in a brutal year, the last game says a lot. It shows who is still fighting for a spot. It shows who is just waiting for vacation. It shows who has the right mindset for an offseason that could be massive. And look, only here do you get this true Raiders fan read with no sugarcoating. If you think the team should go all out to lock in that #1 pick, drop your take in the comments straight up. I want to feel where the fan base is at. Now hold on, because this turns fast. There is stuff happening above the field, and it involves power, seats, and big voices moving pieces as soon as Monday. All right, now let's talk about what is really heating up behind the scenes. Because this is not just about losing games. It is about leadership, direction, and who actually has a voice in the building. And the names today are Pete Carroll, John Spytek, Tom Brady, and Mark Davis. When those four are tied together in the same conversation, you know there is smoke. Start with Pete Carroll. The talk is simple and it is harsh. He and Mark Davis are expected to sit down after the season ends. Pete is going to try to sell a plan, but from what is leaking out, the odds of him convincing Davis are slim, really slim. People close to it have described it as a Hail Mary. That tells you everything about the mood. Because when a head coach needs a miracle to stay, it means the building lost faith somewhere along the way. Now, John Spytek, and I am going to be straight with you. He arrived as the general manager, but he did not arrive truly in control. The team lacked that voice that says this is north. It also lacked the courage to say this is where we're going. And in a year where everything went wrong, that absence got exposed. Fans felt it. The team turned into a mess. And it felt like the franchise had no one steadying the wheel. At the same time, the talk is that firing Spytek is not on the table right now. What is on the table is giving him real power. Let the guy run it. Let him make decisions without looking over his shoulder every step. Then you get to Tom Brady. A minority owner, yes, but with massive weight in the room. Is he going to be there day to day? Nobody knows, and honestly, it is understandable if he does not want to be a full-time executive. But Mark Davis has to decide who the adult in the room is, because the franchise cannot keep drifting like this. The feeling is the Raiders are rich in infrastructure, a ridiculous stadium, a top-tier facility, a cap situation that can breathe, and but poor in direction. That is what drives anyone in silver and black crazy, because it is not a lack of resources, it is a lack of a clear path, and of course, all of it lands on the 2026 NFL Draft. The number one pick is sitting right there, blinking. The talk already includes names like Fernando Mendoza, Dante Moore, and Ty Simpson. There is also the idea of trading that pick, and that is the kind of decision that changes a franchise for years. What you can feel is the top of the building is already staring at that choice. Like, the game ends, and then we're on the clock. If you are tired of empty talk, I get it. But this part matters, because how they handle Carroll, Brady, and Spytek will tell you what the Raiders want to be in 2026. And what comes next makes the pressure even heavier, because a rising star is being linked straight to Las Vegas, and his numbers make people dream and doubt at the same time. Alright, now here's the story that has the fan base arguing all over every timeline. The name getting pinned to the Raiders in this draft projection is Dante Moore, quarterback at Oregon. And yes, I know, just hearing quarterback at the top of the draft gives you that cold feeling, because it is hope, but it is also trauma. We have been carrying that for a long time. The connection came from a projection by The Athletic. They looked at team after team among the non-playoff group, then they tried to predict the approach in the draft, and they put Moore in Las Vegas. That tracks with the current picture. The Raiders are 2-14, and right now they have a clear path to the number one pick. But there is still the last week. If an unlikely win happens, the order can shift, and then everything changes. As for Moore, his resume is interesting. He started college at UCLA in 2023. He played and flashed, but it was not some perfect fairy tale. Then, when Chip Kelly left, he transferred to Oregon. In 2024, he sat, redshirt, then in 2025, he became the real starter. And the numbers jump off the page: more than 3,000 passing yards, 28 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. And he also added value with his legs. That is not small, especially for a guy under the spotlight in playoff season and draft season. But here's what we have to chew on carefully. Taking a quarterback at the very top is a massive bet. And historically, the Raiders almost never do it. The last time this franchise took a quarterback in the first round was Jamarcus Russell back in 2007. Before him, it was Todd Marinovich in 1991. So it is rare. The last quarterback the team truly drafted to build around was Derek Carr, but that was the second round in 2014. So when you talk about using a number one pick on a quarterback, that is a real cultural shift for this team. And there is another layer. Oregon has recent history with quarterbacks going high. Marcus Mariota, Justin Herbert, and Bo Nix were first rounders. That creates this feeling of maybe it is safer. But look, there is no safe when you stake your franchise on an arm. What exists is conviction and a plan. If the Raiders take Moore, it cannot be just because he is the guy available. You need the right coach. You need the right scheme. You need a line that can protect him. And you need patience. Real patience. If not, it turns into another cycle of breaking a player and starting over from zero. And what I am seeing from fans is exactly this. Some people look at the numbers and say, it's him. Some people look at the recent history and say, I don't trust it. I'm in the middle. Because I want to believe, but I want to see structure. That is what turns a prospect into a franchise quarterback. And hold up, because the next story turns the volume up. This is not just about picking a quarterback. Some people are making the case to hit the full reset button, and that pulls Fernando Mendoza into the conversation, plus coaching names that could join the mix. There is one thing nobody can dodge now. The Raiders are on the edge of hitting the reset button. And that is not fans being dramatic. It is the reality of a year that became a bottomless pit. Draft position is going to drive the entire offseason conversation, and the final game against the Chiefs is the key to the vault. If they lose, Las Vegas is officially on the clock with the first overall pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, and then the debate splits the fan base in silver and black. Do you use that pick to take the quarterback of the future, or do you trade it to stack assets and rebuild the roster? But there is a catch. This draft is not being viewed as a quarterback-loaded class. The name that shows up as the most locked in at the top is Fernando Mendoza, the Heisman winner out of Indiana. He has been linked to the Raiders for a while. So if the franchise truly holds on to the number one pick, a lot of people are already picturing Mendoza in a new uniform. But let me tell you this with a tight chest. Taking a quarterback and starting over only works if the rest of the building is aligned. If it is another year of people pulling in different directions, the kid becomes the target, and the story repeats. We have seen that movie way too many times, and it is not just the quarterback, it is the whole package. The core of this argument is simple. Look at the franchise from top to bottom, because 2025 was awful. People have called it the worst season in Raiders history. I do not love that label, but I get where it comes from. Sunday after Sunday, it felt like a team with no identity, no response. And when that happens, the leadership conversation hits the wall. Pete Carroll is at the center of it. His seat has been hot for weeks. And John Middlecoff dropped a heavy take on the Colin Cowherd podcast. He basically said that for a lot of people around the league, Pete's fate already looks written, and that the path would be to draft Mendoza and start over. He also raised another question that matters. Where is the next offensive genius to guide a young quarterback? Not every year has a game-changer candidate. Then he threw names out there. He mentioned Robert Saleh as a possibility. He also floated the idea of pairing a strong head coach with a general manager who has vision. Like John Spytek, if he truly gets real autonomy. I think about all of that and I laugh in that nervous way, because it sounds easy on paper. In reality, it is a massive gamble, and the Raiders cannot afford to get it wrong again. You cannot build a plan and abandon it halfway down the road. So this fourth story is basically a warning. The draft pick matters, but the real reset is culture, leadership, and direction. If they nail it, the path changes. If they miss, it becomes another cycle of frustration. And since the talk has shifted to the head coach chair, the next story comes with very specific names being floated, and some of them are going to make a lot of people cringe. Now, the rumor mill turns into a candidate list, and when that starts leaking, it usually means the building is preparing for a future without Pete Carroll. The plan is to wait until the season ends to make the final call, but the whole league is already doing the math. And two names have popped up clearly: Cliff Kingsbury and Vance Joseph. Chris Shula also showed up in that mix as one of those names that can land on a lot of lists. With Kingsbury, the read going around is this: even with Washington's offense not looking great, people at ESPN are saying he is still viewed as an offensive coach who can lift a team. And if the job opens, Las Vegas is going to look hard at anyone who can fix the offense. He has a style, he likes tempo, he likes a young quarterback operating fast, but I can already picture half the fan base in silver and black pumping the brakes because his head coaching run with the Cardinals was uneven. There were good stretches, but it ended burned. And fans are not in the mood for a 2-year project that disappears. Then there is Vance Joseph. He has respect as a defensive coordinator, and nobody is taking that away. But the worry is the same. As a head coach in Denver, it was not a run that makes you say, that's the guy. What bothers fans most is the recycled feeling, like we're bringing in another guy who already tried and it didn't work. It tastes like a patch job, and a patch job is exactly what 2026 cannot be. And Chris Shula gets tied to that pixie dust people connect to Sean McVay's staff. I get the appeal. The NFL loves hunting for the next name from the right tree. But a good tree does not guarantee good fruit. And it brings you back to the question that hits every day: what is the plan? Who is the person who can hold the line when things get tight? Because here, the pressure is doubled. It comes from the market. It comes from the shield. It comes from the history. And I know you already know this. If the final list is just former head coaches trying to reinvent themselves, I'm worried. That is not disrespect. That is just fear of repeating mistakes. Because if you are moving on from Pete, you have to be sure the next guy fits the draft. You have to be sure the next guy fits the quarterback who could arrive. And you have to be sure the next guy fits the culture that needs rebuilding. If not, it would have been better to be clear and build a strong staff around him. The middle ground is the worst place to live. What I feel is this fifth story is not only about names, it is about identity. It is the franchise choosing between courage and comfort. And the way things look right now, the next decision will not only hit the field, it is going to hit the head of anyone who shows up every Sunday, whether it is sunshine or a storm. You know what hits the hardest in all of this? It is not just the ugly scores. It is the feeling that the final whistle against the Chiefs opens the door to a total reset. The season ended at rock bottom with Geno Smith becoming a question mark and the team sitting at the bottom of the rankings. Then came the power talk with Mark Davis, Tom Brady, and John Spytek, and the draft became the center of the universe with Dante Moore and Fernando Mendoza on the table. To top it off, this list of possible head coaches is the kind of thing that changes the soul of a locker room. My statement is simple. If the Raiders do not choose a firm direction right now, 2026 starts broken. And do not forget to drop a comment because this space belongs to everyone who lives and breathes Raiders football.